Hey there, Pastor Andrew here. I'm reminded of a story about a boy and a father who were cleaning up out in the yard, kind of out behind an old shed. You know how they get all built up with garbage over the years. They're getting ready to toss an old piece of wood into the pile that's going to be used for the fire pit. But then it just so happened that a neighbor came by, saw that piece of wood, and asked if he could have it. Well, they agreed because an old, dirty, misshapen piece of wood is really no loss. It was just set for the fire anyway. But a few days later, this neighbor comes back with a beautiful work of art. He had transformed that old piece of wood set for the fire into a beautiful piece which would gladly be displayed indoors for other people to see and to enjoy. You see, in the right hands, something old and seemingly useless or misshapen or broken can be transformed into something beautiful and can be transformed into something valuable. A story like this always comes to mind when you read this passage in Jeremiah. We're in Jeremiah chapter 18. Jeremiah was a prophet in the Old Testament, and he's told by God to go down and visit a potter at this potter's house for an object lesson. And so he goes and he begins to watch as this potter shapes the clay and then messes up and misshapes it, but then fixes it and shapes it correctly again, reforming it. And then God uses this visual aid to ask Jeremiah a question and tell him something in verse 6. We read, "O house of Israel, can I not do with you as this potter has done, declares the Lord? Behold, like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O Israel." Now, the first layer of meaning, of course, is that God's speaking to Jeremiah specifically about Israel's situation, and I'm sure, no doubt, he had in mind Jesus is coming in the future from that vantage point and the new covenant, and God saying that Israel is God's elect people and for a purpose and a plan and a covenant and all of those things. And that's the first layer of meaning. We have to honor that. But I do think it's certainly true to say that God can do that, right? I mean, he is in control and he is sovereign. And so he can do that. He can rework things with us even today. And maybe you feel that way. Have you ever felt that way? Low self-esteem. I'm broken. I'm misshapen. Low self-esteem. And you see others being used by God to go on missions trips and travel around the world, or maybe preach and teach the word of God. You see people with sort of upfront ministries and you think, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I don't have the look that I should have, or I have too many mistakes. It's kind of funny what our mind can come up with the help of the enemy trying to push us down and push us aside. I'm not smart enough. I don't look the part. You know what though? Let this truth sink in that we just learned from the story and that we learned from Jeremiah chapter 18. Jesus can take your broken life, your broken pieces, and make you into a beautiful work of art that glorifies him and leads others to Jesus. He can do that. Think about that.